Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning, or evening, wherever you may be, and welcome to the webinar, Asia Pacific's Role in Shaping Global Air Travel. Thank you so much for joining us at this event today. We have a great line of speakers ahead of us, but first, let me introduce myself. I am Fernanda Rodak, Manager for Sustainability and Social Responsibility at the Pacific Asia Travel Association, PATA. Before we begin our presentation and panel discussion, I have a quick couple of notes for you. First, this event is being recorded and we will send the link of the recording to all the attendees. Also, I'd like to encourage you to use the chat function at Zoom to introduce yourself and engage with other participants, as well as using the Q&A function to ask questions throughout the event. My team and I will be monitoring the questions you send, but we will address them towards the end at the Q&A session. So to start the webinar, I would like to introduce our PATA CEO, Noor Ahmad Hamid, to present the welcome remarks. Noor, over to you.
Thank you, Fernanda. Well, I know it's good to have this webinar despite that we're meeting all face-to-face event. Firstly, I would just like to say that the engine of growth is not just about innovation, it's also about connection. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the distinguished guests, participants, and so speakers for today's webinar. It is indeed my great honor and pleasure to welcome all of you to this timely and highly relevant webinar, which is co-hosted by PATA and the Air Transport Action Group, or ATAG. Today, we will turn our attention to a critical topic, that's Asia Pacific role in shaping global air travel. At PATA, we have long advocated for a connected, responsible, and resilient tourism ecosystem. And there is no denying that aviation is central to this vision, powering connectivity, enabling trade, creating jobs, and of course, supporting the broader, meaningful tourism economy. We've seen that over the last 2 decades, Asia Pacific is expected to lead the world in air travel demand. This growth presents extraordinary opportunities for our destinations, airlines, airports, and communities, and in particular, PATA members at large. But it's also bring with it a set of pressing responsibilities to ensure that our growth is really inclusive, that our infrastructure is future ready, and above all, that our development is sustainable. This is where our session today takes such an importance. We will hear insights from ATAG Aviation, Benefit Beyond Borders report, which underscores aviation multiplier effect on job creation and regional development, especially when managed with foresight and in alignment with climate goals. I would like to express our sincerest appreciation to our co-hosts at the ATAG, and in particular, Mr. Haldane Dodd, Executive Director of ATAG, for being with us today and for sharing the latest data and analysis on the future of air transport in our region. I'm also delighted that we are here joined today by leading voices from across the aviation sector. Firstly, we have Mr. Subhash Menon, Director General of the Association of the Asia Pacific Airline, who brings decades of strategic expertise in airline leadership and policy advocacy. And of course, Mr. Eric Fong, the Marketing Director of Macau International Airport, who will share a practical view from one of Asia's busiest tourism hubs. In case you didn't know, Eric is also a PATA board member. Together, I'm sure that all the three of them will provide us with practical strategies and forward-looking perspective on how our region can lead responsibly, ensuring that growth in air travel not only supports our economies, but also our commitments to sustainability, resilience, shared prosperity, and meaningful tourism. On behalf of all of us at PATA, thank you for joining us. I wish you have a productive and enlightening discussion ahead. And I encourage all of you to engage actively throughout the session. There's a chat box that you can post a question or your comments or your thoughts that you can share with these speakers. Let us continue to work together to shape a future where travel and innovation are not only enablers of growth, but also champion of positive impact across the Asia Pacific region and beyond. On that note, thank you, and back to you, Fernanda.
Thank you, Nur, for the great introduction to this webinar. So now, Nur already introduced them, but I'll introduce them again. Our speakers for today, Haldane Dodd, Executive Director of ATAG, Subhash Menon, Director General of the Association of Asia Pacific Airlines, and Eric Fong, Marketing Director of the Macau International Airport. And to start, I would like to welcome Haldane Dodd for his presentation. So Haldane, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Fernanda, for that introduction, and Noor, to you and the entire PATA team as well for organizing this and being our partner in this webinar. I think it's a fantastic opportunity to update you on some work that we've been doing and also just some thoughts about how we can do exactly what you said, Noor, marry the opportunities of growth with the responsibilities that come with that growth as well. So I am just going to open up my window and hopefully be able to share my screen with everybody. Hopefully you can all see that okay, Fernanda?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Excellent. Well, listen, what we wanted to do today was to give you a bit of an update from a report that we've put out that's available on our website. And I encourage you to have a look at the full report. I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of what's in the report today. And hopefully that will help spur a bit of a discussion with our panelists today. But anything that's in the report is available for use by anybody across the industry, aviation, travel and tourism. The whole family can get behind some of the details that are in this report. Just to give you an idea of who the Air Transport Action Group is, our platform brings together all the different parts of the aviation industry working together on long-term issues of sustainability. So these are our members. You can see that they represent airlines, airports, air traffic management, and the major manufacturers of aircraft and engines around the world, and a large number of different parts of the industry working on sustainability issues, including just recently in the last few years, more and more sustainable aviation fuel producers as well. And I'll get onto SAF in a minute. But you'll see also on the screen that AAPA, Subhash, is a member of ours, as well as PATA as well. So making sure that we have that wider conversation about sustainability and how we as an industry can prepare for some of the challenges that lie ahead when it comes to sustainability in the broadest sense of the discussion. Just a quick snapshot of some of the key figures when it comes to aviation in the Asia-Pacific region. We see that there are over 1,100 airports, 300 plus airlines, 1.4 billion passengers in 2023, and 25 million air traffic movements that are scheduled each year in the region. So it is a big region and of course, a big industry that needs to work in a coordinated way to ensure that we can deliver the services that we do to passengers around the world. But I think one of the things that we really focus on quite a lot within the Aviation Benefits Beyond Borders report is the role that we play in helping to support society and economic activity. And key here are the jobs that we help to support. So you see within the industry, the direct aviation specific jobs within civil aerospace, so manufacturing of aircraft and engines, air traffic control, airlines, airport staff, and those other staff that work on airports, including a lot of government agency staff. About 4.3 million people in the Asia-Pacific region are employed directly within the aviation industry itself. And then, of course, you add on to that the supply chain, the indirect jobs. That's another 9.7 million jobs. And then when you think about the spending of aviation employees. So when they go home and they go out and they buy a car or they go to a grocery shop and spend within the community, the induced jobs that are responsible from the aviation sector are about 8 million jobs by themselves across the Asia-Pacific region. And then, of course, we play a very important role in tourism across the region as well. That's 20 million jobs by itself that are specifically related to aviation-induced tourism. So not tourism from other forms of transport, but aviation-induced tourism. And so when you add all those up together, it's about 42 million jobs around the Asia Pacific region that are supported by air transport, and $890 billion in gross domestic product or economic activity, if you like. So a fairly significant part of the economy, 2.5% of all GDP in the Asia Pacific region. Of course, that's just Asia Pacific. If you look at it from a global perspective, we supported in 2023 86.5 million jobs worldwide. So it really just gives you an idea of the scope of air transport. And of course, when you bring in all the tourism jobs outside of the air transport related tourism, actually that number goes up quite significantly as well. I think one of the interesting things when you're looking at the Asia Pacific side of the discussion is where jobs are being provided. And of course, historically, I think it's fair to say that most aviation jobs were really in the United States. This has really changed in a very big way. So these are the top 10 markets around the world where aviation has a role in providing jobs. And you'll see that number 1 is China, number 2 is India, but actually 8 out of the top 10 markets now in terms of jobs supported by aviation are in the Asia Pacific region. Really gives you an idea of the growth in that region over the last decades. And then looking forward, how is that going to shift? So we know that Asia Pacific is the fastest growing region within the world in terms of air traffic. We see a 5.6% projected average annual growth rate for international traffic for the next 20 years. But what does that mean in terms of jobs supported? So we see a 47% increase in jobs by 2043, up to 62 million jobs supported by aviation in that year. And of course, 6.1 million jobs directly within the aviation sector itself. And a fairly significant increase in the economic impact of aviation in the region. So that's all very positive. And we're seeing this really play out from an airport perspective. So these are yearly growth rates with a fairly significant increase in traffic. Of course, a lot of this will have been off the back of the COVID slowdown in traffic or stop of traffic, but we are still seeing actually quite impressive rates of growth by different airports across the region as well, in Japan, in India, Singapore, in South Korea, and then from a cargo perspective as well, in Hong Kong and Shanghai, some good rates of growth there. On the tourism side, so 58% of international tourists travel to their destination by air, probably a much higher proportion in Asia Pacific, given the distances and the geography of the region. And obviously here in Europe, and I'm speaking to you from Geneva today, we have a decent amount of car and rail traffic between different countries. But of course, in the Asia Pacific region, given geography, given the distances involved, actually the proportion of tourists traveling to the destination by air will be much higher than 58%, I'd imagine. But we also see some fairly important discussion on the types of jobs that are provided within the tourism space and also the total tourism spend by tourists around the world. I think one of the things that people often forget is even though you might be going on holiday, actually that holiday is supported by jobs in the markets in which you're going to. So your holiday is somebody else's job, either in a hotel or in a restaurant or in a tour operator, or even just in the retail economy as well. And that's one of the really important messages that we'd like to try and get across, particularly here in Europe, where air travel is not seen necessarily in the same way as it's seen in Asia Pacific or in other parts of the world. There's this idea that maybe people just going on a holiday isn't a serious business, but of course it is for those that are assisted and provided jobs by that tourism traffic. And I think one of the things that is really interesting to see is how the propensity of travel within economies is changing quite rapidly. As economies develop, as they emerge into the middle class and developing economies and developed economies that we see, actually there is quite a significant shift in the propensity to travel, so the number of trips that people take every year. And I think the chart here on the left is really interesting, where you look at the USA, for example, where actually the propensity to travel, the number of passengers per capita hasn't really shifted in the 20-year period. And in the UK, it hasn't really shifted all that much either. But in places like China, in Vietnam and Indonesia, and Brazil as well, and other parts of the world, actually we're starting to see some really significant shifts in the number of passengers that are traveling per capita, or the number of trips that people take every year, as well as different economies develop and as middle classes develop. So that's not a surprising thing, and that's going to continue over time. And I think one of the things that is quite interesting to see is, whereas in the past a lot of the hubs have been in Europe or in North America, now, of course, that's shifting, and the Middle East has grown into a real hub region. Singapore has always been a bit of a hub, of course, but we are also seeing an increase in South-South trade and travel as well, so bypassing the traditional hubs of Europe and North America. And that's going to be continuing over time as well. So all of that is fantastic in terms of growth, fantastic for the industry, fantastic for tourism, fantastic for connectivity. But of course, it comes at a bit of a cost as well. And that cost is increased CO2 emissions if we don't take care of the way that we are going to grow our sector. And as climate change becomes more and more of a topic on people's minds, we need to find ways of ensuring that the growth can continue, but without the CO2 emissions growth. This is a chart that I show quite often, which I think really illustrates a bit of the story of where we've come from, the progress of where we've come from in terms of CO2 emissions, and where we need to go to. So just to explain the chart to you, it starts in 1990 and goes all the way out to 2050. And if you look at the red dotted line, that shows where our CO2 emissions will have been if we were still using the same aircraft technology and flying those aircraft in the same operational efficiency as we were back in 1990. And so if the traffic had grown as we expect it to, using the 1990 levels of efficiency, actually by 2050 we would be at around 5 gigatons of CO2 being emitted by the air transport industry. Now, we've improved our efficiency over time, and certainly in the last 35 years we've improved that efficiency. So you can see the big red area is the amount of CO2 that we've avoided producing because of the increases in new technology and increases in operational efficiency. In fact, we've avoided about 14 gigatons of CO2 from being emitted in that time because of the progress that we've made. So where would we be if we were using today's technology and today's level of operational efficiency in 2050? We'll be at around that blue dot in the middle there. So it's about 2 gigatons of CO2. And the big question for us across the world is, how do we go from there down to net zero CO2, which is not only an industry goal, but it's also the goal of the UN specialized agency that looks at aviation, ICAO, in Montreal. And what are the levers that we need to pull to get us down to net zero emissions in order to meet Paris Agreement targets and also play our part in ensuring that we don't play an oversized role in CO2 emissions? So we're looking at all sorts of different measures, new technology, so improving the efficiency of the aircraft that we're already flying, looking at new types of aircraft, conventional aircraft, so new aircraft like the A350 that's now in service, but also the next generation of typical aircraft that you see. Also things like hydrogen as a potential opportunity, or electric aviation, particularly for small sides of the market. What are the operational and infrastructure improvements that we can do? So how can we improve the efficiency of flight through air traffic management improvements? What are the new types of fuels that we're going to use? And to deal with any residual emissions, what kind of market-based measures are we going to look at? So that's the acronyms there that you see, or the letters that you see. T for technology, O for operations and infrastructure, F for new types of fuel, and M for market-based measures. And I'm really going to focus on the fuel side of things, because I think this is not only an area that we need to focus on to improve the efficiency of our aircraft and the CO2 efficiency of the aircraft, but also as a real opportunity, particularly in the Asia Pacific region. So we know that out of the different measures through our report, which we put together called Waypoint 2050, new types of fuel are probably the most important part of that story going forward. We know that we can improve technology, we can improve operations and infrastructure, and there will be some residual emissions. But for the most part, the net zero goal is going to be met through sustainable aviation fuels. And according to our Waypoint 2050 analysis, we might need up to 500 million tons every year of SAF to help us get towards that net zero goal. Last year, we produced and used about 1 million tons. And in fact, this year we expect it might be 2 million tons, but it shows the big gap between what we're producing and using now for SAF and where we need to be by 2050 in order to get to that net zero goal. So it's an enormous challenge and one that is really ensuring a coordinated effort across the industry to try and meet that goal. What we do know is that there is capacity to meet some of the earlier goals, in particular 2030 goals that there are around the world. Because we know that there is about 50 million tons of renewable fuel capacity. Most of that at the moment is going into road transport, particularly here in Europe, but some of it could be diverted to aviation if the right policy was in place. And I think the other important thing is that aviation is not just looking at one potential SAF pathway. We've got 11 different pathways that have already been certified by ASTM as safe for use within the aviation sector, but there are another 11 pathways that are being looked at. And what that gives us is a wide range of different options, a menu of different SAF pathways and feedstock opportunities. And that's really good because it ensures that we can look at local opportunities, which makes the most sense from a local perspective to create a SAF industry and help deliver sustainable aviation fuel into the sector. If you look at it from a government policy perspective, so this is sort of more on the regulatory side, we know that there are about 45 countries that cover about 65% of global jet fuel use that are either already implementing or that are considering SAF policy options, including a number in the Asia Pacific region as well. On the voluntary demand side, there's also a number of airlines that have made longer-term commitments to at least 5% SAF by 2030. So this is only 5 years away. And of course, the team at AAPA put together a goal of 5% SAF for all the member airlines, but there are a number of airlines that have adopted a 10% goal. In fact, a few airlines that have adopted a 30% goal by 2030, which is really extraordinary, particularly the cargo carriers there on the right-hand side. So even though there are 50 airlines here and there are a lot more airlines around the world, actually these 50 airlines represent 40% of global air traffic. So it's a significant part of the market that have volunteered to do what they can to improve SAF usage. But that's on the voluntary side, and that needs to work with the regulatory side in order to try and build a SAF industry as well. Sky Energy, one of our members, puts together a projection or an outlook every year. In fact, they've just released their new outlook a couple of weeks ago. It's not public yet, but we'll update these figures once that becomes public. This is from last year, but it shows where potential production could be generated in 2030 around the world. So the important thing here is that this is not just a Europe story and a North America story, but it's something that can be looked at in all different parts of the world as well. But of course, if you look at this, and then if you look at what our expectations of what we're going to need in 2050, you can see an enormous shift, an enormous challenge to get from those 2030 numbers to the 2050 numbers in order for us to really make a drive towards that net zero goal. So anyway, I want to just leave it at that. Hopefully that's provided a bit of food for thought for a discussion later on. I apologize about the construction noise outside my window. It's a very nice day here in Geneva, so I've had to keep the window open. But hopefully I can stop that construction noise in just a second. And I'm going to hand it back over to Fernanda to lead on the rest of the discussion.
Thank you, Haldane. I didn't hear any construction noise, so I think we're
Okay,
good. So I think you can stop sharing your screen.
Okay. And I should just say, actually, that if you want to download the full report, if you just go to aviationbenefits.org, you'll be able to download that report and look into all the details.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you so much, Haldane, for your insightful presentation on aviation as a catalyst for Asia Pacific's growth, but also the challenges and opportunities on the net zero journey for the aviation sector. Now it's time for our panel discussion. And to moderate, please welcome Pavnesh Kumar, Director of Project Management at PATA. Over to you, Pavnesh.
Thanks, Fernanda. Hi, everyone. So let's get started with the panel discussion. The first question goes to you, Haldane. Terrific presentation, by the way. Really interesting insights. So based off your presentation, could you elaborate on the key findings regarding the multiplier effect on job creation and regional development specific to this region?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do that. So I think that the multiplier thing is a really interesting concept, isn't it? So if we support 42 million jobs, actually that's equivalent to 1 in every 45 jobs across the region are supported by air transport alone. And when you add tourism, that number will even grow a bit more. So if you look at it another way, every person that's directly employed in the aviation sector supported another 9 jobs elsewhere in the Asia Pacific region. So 1 job within aviation, 9 jobs outside of the air transport market. And what that means is that for every dollar of gross value added directly in the aviation sector, actually $3.70 of economic activity was supported elsewhere in the region. So that really just shows the multiplier effect. And I think one of the things to remember from the numbers that we present in our aviation benefits report is that we take a fairly conservative view. So one of the things that we don't include in those job supported numbers is the catalytic effect of the ability to do business by air transport. So of course, when somebody travels overseas by business and they generate revenue from that business trip, we don't include those numbers in our figures or the jobs that are created by opening new factories that are made possible by air transport connectivity, because it's very hard to actually pin that down. But actually the number probably gets much larger than that as well. I think the other thing that is particularly important to the PATA members is the role that we play in supporting tourism in the Asia Pacific region. So as we mentioned before, about 20 million jobs, $250 billion contribution to GDP from aviation supported tourism by itself. And I think when you look at it just specifically from a few different countries, tourism contribution to GDP is actually quite high in the Asia Pacific region. So it's 18% of the GDP in the Philippines, 15% in New Zealand, 11% in Singapore, 10% in Australia, 10% in Hong Kong and Thailand as well. And these are quite high numbers when you look at countries of similar sizes, particularly in Europe and other parts of the world. So actually, tourism plays a really important role for Asia Pacific economic development as well.
Fantastic. So in continuation to this response from Haldane, my next question is to you, Subhas. And this is, what are the top 3 strategic priorities for the carriers to ensure this growth is not commercially viable, but also environmentally and socially sustainable in the long term?
Thank you, Pavnesh, and hello to everyone. Well, I would say the top priorities are not very different from many businesses across the globe. Champion sustainable growth. Secondly, development of human capital to support this sustainable growth, and also very importantly, to ensure that aviation continues to be an important conduit for the socio-economic development of the world. It's been more than 80 years since civil aviation as we know it was established. And the primary reason why civil aviation was established at ICAO under the auspices of United Nations was because after the Second World War, the world wanted to transform aviation from a military activity to a civilian exercise for human good. So it is important that we retain this principle. And when you talk about champion sustainable growth, we are more championing sustainability. We are not just talking about less greenhouse gases. We are talking about implementing measures, implementing policies, implementing activities that can be sustained, not only for the present generation, but also for future generations. No point doing something which is good for the next 5 years, if it is going to turn back and bite you in the future. So this is a very important principle. And if you notice that the air transport sector, which was the most hard done by pandemic, recovered very quickly after the borders reopened. And this is because they have always invested in the future. Airlines have always invested in the future with whatever they have been doing. Developing human capital is also a very important principle, because if you do not develop the human capital, then you can face the sort of supply chain crisis that the industry is facing today. In the Asia Pacific region, actually between 2020 and 2022, redundancies and retrenchments were few and far between, because airline CEOs realize the importance of making sure that they have the resources, human resources, to be able to grow out of the pandemic when the borders reopened. And this is what we saw in most of the regions, and no region was faster growing than the Asia Pacific region. Also, when you talk about being a conduit for socio-economic development, today the air transport industry in the Asia Pacific is the fastest growing and the largest growing and the largest market in the world, accounting for more than a third of all air transport, globally. At the same time, the GDPs in the Asia Pacific region is also growing rapidly. Both air transport growth as well as GDP growth are growing at double the rate of the global average. So this is very important. And if you consider that what Haldane had just said, tourism is also a very important factor. So if you look at it that way, we can look at complementarity rather than substitution. We cannot throw the baby out with the bathwater. Of course, sustainable aviation fuel is the most important element for us to achieve net zero by 2050. But how are you going to achieve the amount of sustainable aviation fuel that we need? Not by substitution, not by going to renewable energy from tomorrow. We still have to make sure that the livelihoods, and the ability to live for emerging economies are not damaged. Also, food security is also very important. We cannot use arable land only to produce sustainable aviation fuel, because people need this also to live, and governments also have a duty to their various communities to be able to survive and also to grow together with the sustainable growth of the air transport industry. So this is very important. I think we can take a lesson from renewable diesel, for example. RD, or renewable diesel, in the Asia Pacific region, in many of the larger countries have already reached 10% of fuel use for land transport. And how is this achieved? Because RD comes under the responsibility of individual governments, under the UNFCCC framework, or NDC, they say, nationally determined contributions. So good enough is good enough for RD. But when it comes to SAF, we aim for ultra purity. Why not? Why not go for the low-hanging fruits? Like co-processing. Which is one way of bringing the fossil fuel suppliers into the supply chain. By using co-processing, you can get at least 5% SAF blend. For air transport use. So I think we have to take a realistic approach. We have to look at building block approach. What can we do now? That can also help us achieve what is good for the industry and for the world in 2050.
Fantastic, Subhash. So basically, the transition towards sustainability is more about strategy. And this is what my next question is going to be based on for Eric. So how is Macau International Airport strategically evolving its infrastructure, services, while simultaneously addressing the challenges of being a popular tourism destination?
Hello. Thank you for the questions. Actually, our airport now is mainly focused on the how to make the more effective to build up the infrastructure. So we are mostly focused on the smart infrastructure, passenger central service, and target marketing, and embed the sustainable or the related Macau unique tourism dynamic. So we are in the infrastructure evolution. We will maximize our efficiency on the constraint footprint. For example, the terminal optimization. Since we complete our passenger terminal building extensions, phase 1, in the last year, and also we currently focus on the optimizing the existing space for the digital solution. For example, self-kiosk. And also we build some self-kiosks in the hotel because we got quite a lot of the large resource. So we also we would like to reduce the passenger jam in the terminal. So we put some self-check-in kiosks in the large resort. And also we try to adjust the peak time because our airport is some of the difference from the mainland China because our service agreement, our ASA is independent. So we can sign with you all around the country. And we got the tower control, and also we have the slot allocation is also under our airport. So that will be more easy to adapt the new traffic and new airlines come to the Macau. And also we do quite a lot of the intermodal connections because there's a Hong Kong Macau Zhuhai Beach. So it's very convenient between the Hong Kong and Macau. We just take around 45 minutes. And also we just beside our airport, we have the very large ferry terminal. So that will be very convenient for us for the air to sea, air to land, and land to air the connections. So we are ready to restructure the service. And also we put quite a lot of investment in the land connections because we also have quite a lot of service center in the PRD region, for example, in the Zhuhai, Zhongshan, and Jiangmen. So we also have the connections to pick up the passenger from the PRD region to fly from the Macau as well. And also we do quite a lot of connection with the Zhuhai as well. So we now we do some activities called the Fly Via Macau and Tour Via Zhuhai because now the China side is release quite a lot of reserve fee for the international passenger to visit the Macau and the mainland China. And Macau's AR also is very encouraged to the international passengers to visit Macau. So coupled with our central government policy, so the central government policy also to provide the visa fee to the people to entering China as well. So that is very convenient. when the passenger travel Macau and then they can go to the mainland China to take 1 or 2 days and then back to the Macau and then fly back their home country from the Macau as well. And also we do some service enhancement because Macau is quite a lot of big resort, and also we have a lot of the casino as well. So we are work with the airlines mainly is focused on the gaming and non-gaming, and also we are promoting the MICE industry because we also to take care for the leisure family, FIT, and the LCC passenger as well. So we are tailoring the service. We are including the premium service or high roller conventions and family zone, and also focus on the different type of the passenger as well. So secondly, we do quite a lot of the digital transformations. This year, we are going to do the online, the One ID, the biometric e-channel, and also we enhance our security channel because we would like to use more digital and high tech to reduce the human error, something like that, to be more practical, to be more efficiency, to let the passenger will feel more comfortable when they are using our airport. And of course, Macau is Portuguese and the Macanese cuisine. So we also work for the local F&B company. We recruit quite a lot and bring the new taste to our airport, let the people to enjoy our F&B just like in the Macau side as well. And beyond the gaming, so we also the Macau is the UNESCO heritage, and also is quite a lot of leisure. So and the government is put a lot in the MICE and the convention center. So we are working for the airline and the airline partners and the hotel partners. We are packaging the full package. So for example, we work for the Sands Macau because they are more this year. They are focused on the Korean market. So they put their new grand opening, the G Bear, in our airport for the reclaim area, so that the people can feel free to get the G Bear. It's very nice souvenir, and then to enhance the publicity in the Korean side and also for their hotel as well. So we quite work with the tourism board as well, because I think tourism board is one of the major to how to attract more people to come to Macau. But from the airport side, we also have our resources on hand, for example, the incentive and the slot control. Of course, I think the tourism board, they will have more resources because they are the part of the government. So we are aligned with the tourism board, and then we work for closely to how to make the thing is more effective. For example, they would like to have more international passengers. No matter they are using the land from the Hong Kong and using the ferry from the Hong Kong and any port, but our major focus is how to attract the people to come to Macau and to visit the Macau as well. So sometimes we will work very closely and for MGTO, and on sides of that, we in terms of we would now we launch quite a lot of new services in the mainland China, especially in the Shanghai, because it is quite a rich region and that area, and also we continue to extend our networking in the Korea and the Japan and Vietnam as well, because there's quite a big demand at that side. So currently, maybe in the fourth quarter, we will have the new destination from the Korea as well. So finally, I think we work for the government, we work for the tourism board, mainly how to make our market more sustainable. But on the other hand, our strategy is the smart growth is not just bigger, because we are very hard to compete for the region of the airport, for example, Hong Kong, Guangzhou, and the Shenzhen as well. But as long as our airport is working for the 30 years, this year is our 30 years anniversary. So I think that will still keep going. Last year, our traffic is increased 48% compared to the 2023. So it's quite aggressive. And this year we are trying to work more to be more customer service side, because I think the air traffic development, I think mostly they will depend on the market. Market is one of the major issue. But now I think the customer service and how to accommodate the passenger, be more happy and more convenience for their travel. I think from the technology and the infrastructure, we will put quite a lot effort and investment on that. And this year, we just start for our airport, reclaim the land to do the big extensions for this year, and we'll complete in 2030. So at that time, so we will put more AI and digital investment in the airport and to build more convenience in the regions. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. That's a wonderful and detailed explanation. And mostly it's about tech-enabled transformation, which is fantastic. And now I will go back to Haldane for the second question to him. And that question is, from your global viewpoint, what are the primary policy and investment levers that governments and industry stakeholders in the Asia Pacific should prioritize to unlock the region's potential as a significant SAF producer and user?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think building on something that Subhas mentioned before about ensuring that the balance is there when you look at sustainability, and I think one of the more useful frameworks for talking about sustainability is the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 different goals, and actually aviation has a role to play in 15 out of those 17 goals, and ensuring that balance between economic growth, economic development, as well as just the growth by itself, jobs, pulling people out of poverty, and also taking care of environmental action is a really important thing. And actually, sustainable aviation fuel can play a bit of a role in a few of those different areas. So obviously, the key driver when we look at it is really about how reducing our CO2 emissions from aviation, and it's really one of the biggest parts of that thing. We don't have a lot of other options within aviation. We can't fly electric aircraft in great distances, and of course there are other technology constraints, and so in order to ensure that the existing fleet of about 30,000 aircraft is able to continue to operate in the future, but in a lower carbon way, we're going to need to change the fuel that we use. And so that's where SAF comes in. So not only is it the sort of key driver in terms of reducing CO2 emissions from within our sector, it's also a real opportunity for countries around the world, and particularly in the Asia Pacific region, to think about being SAF producers and using local resources in order to export SAF, or at least export the environmental attributes of SAF. Because I think one of the things that we really want to be able to see put in place around the world is a global book and claim system. So book and claim, for those of you who are not familiar with this concept, is a way to ensure that we can separate the environmental certificate that comes with the use of sustainable aviation fuel from the physical fuel itself. Because, of course, there's a lot of demand for SAF, particularly in a European and North American context, but that's not necessarily where all the SAF is going to be developed, particularly in the early years. And so in order to avoid shipping the SAF all over the world, we can actually take those environmental attributes, which come with a price tag. That's really where the premium for SAF comes from compared to fossil fuel, and ensure that airlines in Europe who have a mandate to comply with need to be able to purchase those SAF certificates, if you like, or the SAF attributes, environmental attributes, but don't necessarily need to take possession of the physical fuel itself. Because, of course, if you're producing sustainable aviation fuel in countries all over the world, the most logical thing, the most efficient thing is to use it in the closest airport that's available and just have that fly around anyway. And this is kind of similar to the green electricity market that we've seen in a lot of countries around the world, where you've got some solar power, you've got some coal-fired power stations, and if you want to buy green power, then you don't necessarily get the molecules of green energy yourself, but at least that energy is being put into the system somewhere. So we kind of use the same approach when it comes to book and claim. And that's a really important thing. So IATA, the global association for airlines, is working on a SAF registry and a book and claim system to be able to ensure that there is transparency and rigor in having a global book and claim system so that governments can trust it, the airlines can trust it, the SAF producers can trust it, and really build that system, which will be really important. And so what that means is that countries all across the Asia-Pacific region and actually in many other parts of the world can think, actually, where can we build a local energy industry, a green energy industry, provide jobs that come along with that and the economic development that comes along with that, whilst also exporting at least the environmental attributes of that fuel, but having it used in a physical sense by local airlines. So hopefully that makes sense. But I think that's one of the key things to think about. And then when it comes to policy measures, we need to ensure that there are policy measures on both sides. So it's not just thinking about a blend mandate, which is obviously the first thing that most politicians think about, but also the incentives that come into the process. So ensuring that SAF developments and capacity building can take place in regions all across the world. Ensuring that there are loan guarantees or production credits for SAF to be developed has been a really useful part of the process in the United States, and understand that not every country in the world can afford to do quite the same thing. But there are ways in which governments can help support the construction of SAF plants, which don't necessarily mean a subsidy on the SAF itself. And of course, that is being looked at in different parts of the world at the moment. We're very early stages of this, and so we're going to have to see how this develops. But the interesting thing is to see that different countries are approaching it in slightly different ways. Singapore has got a really interesting approach in the way that they are putting a SAF policy in place with the airlines, with the airport, with the energy producers as well. And I think that's the key thing, making sure that there is a coordinated and collaborative effort in this, that it's not just a policy that's brought in by governments with all sorts of unintended consequences that sometimes come along with that, as we've seen in Europe.
That's truly remarkable insight. Thanks, Haldane, for this wonderful insight. Now I will go to Subhas. So Subhas, Haldane spoke if I summarize this in terms of foundations and the frameworks. And based on this, my question to you is, what are the most critical areas where Asia-Pacific airlines through AAPA are currently engaging with governments and international bodies to create a more supportive regulatory framework for sustainable operations and innovation?
Yeah, thank you, Pavanish. I totally agree with Haldane. You cannot have one size fits all type of policy framework. At the same time, you cannot just have a stick. You must also have a carrot. If you want your policies to work. So I think a good comparison is the European Union's mandate-driven framework versus the US, which has adopted the Inflation Reduction Act during the Biden administration, which takes a more incentives and subsidies approach to increasing the production of SAF. So that is why you find that 90% of the SAF production today is in the US, and not in the European Union, even though the European Union was the first to come up with such policies. The other thing is that, I think governments must realize that, you need a global framework, because we are talking about international operations, so you cannot have policies that only address the needs of your airline industry. You need to have policies that address the whole airline industry. So just to give you an example, for example, in the European Union, they have an anti-tankering rule, which means that, you must meet a certain threshold of sustainable aviation fuel uplift from European airports. But at the same time, you're not allowed to bring in sustainable aviation fuel, or tankering as we call it in the industry, into the European Union. So this actually is counterproductive, because at the end of the day it's fuel, and it goes all over the world. As Haldane said, you can procure sustainable aviation fuel somewhere else, if you do not have refineries in your home base, and you can still book the environmental benefits of SAF by just procuring the SAF, even though it is procured from some other port. So I think we'll have to take a global framework, and this is what we are advocating for governments to do in the Asia Pacific region. Sustainable operations require the whole value chain to play its part. Operational efficiency from the airline's perspective is well underway. Haldane talked about the various pillars, for achieving net zero by 2050. Operational efficiency is a very important one, and airlines, doing whatever they can to achieve this, whether it be single engine taxiing or cruising, or replacing the use of single-use plastics. They are doing all they can, but more can be done for efficient route navigation, for instance, which is not helped by the increase in conflict zones, resulting in airspace closures and more flying time. And also, if you have SAF plants, which are too far away from the airport, because SAF is SAF on a chain of custody basis. By the time you put it into the tank of an aeroplane, you have already incurred quite a bit of carbon debits. The supply chain crisis enveloping the industry means that our airlines are operating older equipment for much longer than required. So if you look at it, if pre-COVID our average age of the aircraft was, let's say, 5 years. Now with 6 years, with so much of backlog in aircraft and engine deliveries and parts and components, also affected by the supply chain crisis, the average age of the aircraft could be anywhere between 9 to 11 years. So this also harms operational efficiency, and also our path to net zero by 2050. The delay in aircraft delivery in 2025 is expected to be 25% of the aircraft that have been scheduled to be delivered this year. So that is quite a significant damage that the industry is inflicting on itself. I think if you look at SAF production, I think the biggest problem is that the traditional fuel suppliers, have not joined the supply chain in full force. So the question is, how do you get them involved in the supply of sustainable aviation fuel? So I talked about co-processing earlier. That is one way of getting them into the picture, but also progressive policies, like the revenue guarantees that the US government has provided the fuel suppliers to be able to produce SAF with the confidence that whatever they produce, SAF will be taken up by the airlines. No, there is no question about that. Airlines want to use up every ounce of sustainable aviation fuel that is being produced. And if supply is also increased, then the price gap between SAF and fossil fuel will also be narrowed, which will encourage more production of SAF and more uptake of SAF. Haldane talked about the SAF certificates. That is also another way to increase the demand for SAF. So more the demand signal, more the input that goes into the supply of SAF, the better chance, of us achieving the amount of SAF that we need by 2050. But most importantly, it has to be a holistic and global approach to net zero by 2050, rather than each industry or each government doing their own thing.
Thanks, Subhas. So now my next question is to Eric. Eric, in continuation to Subhas' response, my question to you is, from an airport's perspective, because we have heard from the airline's perspective and governance perspective, from an airport's perspective, what is the most immediate challenge in implementing sustainable infrastructure upgrades?
I think that will be good questions because first, we are target and the marketing is focused on the diversify the Macau appeal and the precision Macau International Airport is the integrate gateway to the Greater Bay Area. And also we are sustainably is embedded on the every decision. For example, from the infrastructure upgrade to the route promotions and on the and ensure we can capture the Asia Pacific opportunities, the responsibility, enhance the passenger experience. And also we are contributing positively to the Macau further as our world-class destinations. Our goal is to be the perfect efficiency and sustainable regional hub connected travel stimulus to the Macau and the West opportunity in the Greater Bay Area. And also we are checking the towards the ACI level 3 carbon accreditations and the target 50 million for the next few years. And also we can share a little bit because in the long time ago, we do some extensions for the deep development with the Macau for the Jakarta, because that can create a very sustainable economic development between the two cities. Because we had quite big demands on the Indonesia market. So at that time, we worked for the Macau and the tourism board, we built up. And I think the tourism board, they put quite a lot of effort. From the airport side, we also try our best to provide some of the incentive and the slot allocation to the Macau to be more fit for them to can compile this new routes for the launch. And also during this year, we do quite a lot upgrade on the security channel, just as I mentioned the first questions. And also actually we work quite a lot with the hotel and the casino and the transportation providers, because we would like to create a no carbon tourism itineraries and promote the electronic, the shuttle bus and carbon offset the flight options, something like that. And of course, our airport, our government now we are talking the target 1+4 is the tourism plus the MICE and the convention and AI, quite a lot of things. But I think from the airport side, as long as we need to cope with the government, how to build up the connections between the Asia Pacific in the regions. And most of them is we need to how to cope with the government policy to be the world-class leisure center from the Macau as well. So we work quite a lot, and we in terms of policy adjustment, we will try to build up quite a lot the policy, how to convince the passenger and how to convince the airline to come to the operate to Macau. And also we will create quite a lot of service connections to the hotel and work for the hotel partners to build up more connections and using their resources to try to create and link up the airline and the tour operator to build up for that. And of course, in terms of the environmental, I think the environmental, I think that will be one of the issue, because now we do quite a lot, for example, in the airport, using quite a lot of electronic, the car, and also the follow me as well. So mainly we would like to have the ensure the tourism growth does not comprise the environmental goal. So we would try to do our best, and also our airport operation demand, they do quite a lot in the ACI, the level 3 carbon tax, something like that. We work quite a lot for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Maybe
And thank-
Bhavnesh, can I just come back on a couple of things that both Eric and
Sure,
Fiat,
sure.
said?
Sure.
So I think when you look at the overall CO2 emissions from the aviation industry, we produced from flying about 1 billion tons of CO2 last year. Yeah, 1,000 million tons of CO2, and that's nearly all from the flying of aircraft. The airport side of things, even though airports are pretty large pieces of infrastructure, are relatively small in that overall sense. And we know that there are some very big things that we can do as an industry. So buying new aircraft is a very big thing, hundreds of millions of dollars per aircraft. Shifting over to sustainable aviation fuel is a big thing, but actually some of the small things that we can do. So the work that Eric and the team are doing at Macau on being part of the Airport Carbon Accreditation Program, of putting in place electrical vehicles, electrical ground service equipment, the work that Subhasa's members are doing on single engine taxiing or flying aircraft better. Those small things really add up over time. So I think that the important message here is not only do we have to think of some of the big shifts, but we also have to start thinking really about some of the things that we can do today in bringing about small changes which add up over time as well. So it's really important to see all that work going on in parallel.
Okay. Yeah, I think your mention is quite positive, and I do agree for that. Currently, because now we do quite a lot of infrastructures renovations, and the most important things is now our operation department, they already started to focus on these issues, because as long as the government, also the environmental departments, and they also mention, and also we can see, just my friend you mentioned is the ACI, the level 3, something like that. So we are step by step to do that. But sometimes we would like to move on, but sometimes we have a lot of something, because most of the thing, for example, the ground handling, we are the contract for the ground handling service. So we need to push them, tell them what they should do, how they should comply for our requirement. So starting from the last year, we starting to squeeze them. In terms of in the future, for example, if you want to renew the contract, you need to comply what is the environmental segment and how to reduce carbon and something like that. And also we talk to the Macau, our freight carrier. They also need to pay more attention for that, because of I think that will be part of the major partner to help us to be more effective for that. From our airport side, we can do something in our own, is how to when do the investment, and when we do the infrastructure, we will try to comply some of the regulation and how to achieve our target. So we already set the 2 years master planning in terms of how to reduce carbon and how to maintain the environmental development. So I think we will follow your suggestions. I think that is very important for us now. Thank you, Doc. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a wonderful discussion, and so lovely to see that everyone is so passionate about sustainability in aviation. I guess we could carry on this discussion for days, if not weeks, but unfortunately we have actually crossed the time limit. So thank you again for your valuable time and insights. And now it's time to give the command back to Fernanda.
Thank you, Bhavnesh, for moderating the session, and to our wonderful panelists. So before we go, I just want to say to the participants watching us that we will be sharing the presentation from Haldane to the email that you use for registration. And before we go, just some last announcements. I would like to invite all of you watching us to join us at the PATA Travel Mart in Bangkok in August from 26 to 28. You can scan the QR code for more information or access our website www.pata.org. And also we have another event coming up, which is the PATA Destination Marketing Forum in December in Chiang Rai, Thailand. You can also access our website for more information. And finally, next year, the PATA Annual Summit is coming to South Korea in May. So we would love to see you there. And that's it for me. thank you so much for all of you joining us. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at fernanda@pata.org or to send your questions that we didn't have time to cover during the webinar live. But feel free to send it to me and we can connect it to the speakers. And so thank you again to our panelists, to the PATA Executive Board members, partner, and of course, all of you that joined us today. Thank you.